If you want a chair with a good headrest, it can be really hard to do because some of these headrests on these chairs are god awful. And so I've gone ahead and narrowed down what I think are 6 of the best chairs with headrests that range from good to absolutely amazing. Speaking of headrests, can your lounge chair offer you headrest support like this? This is the Elvin leather recliner and Ottoman from a company called Cheetah, who's today's sponsor. The Elvin chair is a lounge chair that's made to adjust to you. It has an adjustable headrest that can rise up, and you can even tilt it forward a notch as well. It's using top grain leather, and it has a double layered foam back cushion, which offers that much needed lower back support that lounge chairs often don't provide. My favorite feature about this chair is this. Oh yeah. Oh, I've definitely taken a few naps in this chair because of this feature. The handle on the right side allows you to lean the chair back, and it's an infinite lock. That means you can lock the backrest at pretty much any angle that you desire, which is a really nice feature because sometimes you want to sit up and then sometimes you just want to lounge all the way back. It comes with an ottoman and it slopes downwards to give you that full lounge experience, and the metal base on both of these are really heavy duty, and it's got a memory return feature. So you can turn while you're inside the chair, but if you come out of the chair is going to snap back into its original position. This doesn't seem that great, but it's actually a really thoughtful feature because these chairs are often meant to be accent pieces in your living room or something. And if the ottoman and chair aren't perfectly aligned, it can look pretty messy. So having that snapback feature allows you to do that without any second thought. It comes in multiple colors and it comes in a fabric option as well. Cheetah Living makes other furniture for all budgets, so check them out. Check out the Elvin chair. Link and coupon code for you all will be down in the description below. If you want to jump straight into the breakdown of each of these headrests, you can go ahead and skip ahead. But I think to understand what makes a really good headrest, you have to first understand what makes a really bad headrest. So I'm going to start with one called grade F headrests. These are headrests that are just static. They don't move, they don't swivel, they're just there. And these come on the cheapest chairs, but don't be fooled. They can also come on very expensive chairs as well, such as on the Steelcase Leap V2. Steelcase sells a headrest for that chair, and it's just awful. It's just a piece of pad that just stands there. It cannot move, it cannot swivel, and I don't know why they did that. And the reason why it's so bad is because it offers zero customization. You can't position it where you want it, so unless you're at that perfect height for it, unless your neck is that perfect shape that the headrest was designed in, it's not gonna work for you. Then I'm gonna call the next worst kind are gonna be the grade E headrests. Grade E headrests are headrests that can only move up and down, cannot tilt or swivel at all, it just moves up and down. And again, you might think these are found only on the cheapest headrests or cheapest chairs, and that is true, but it's not always true because on the Haworth Fern, which is this chair here, Haworth sells a headrest for this chair as well, and that headrest can only go up and down. And it's really bad because, not just this one, but all the ones that go up and down are really bad because you're gonna need some swivel action to really customize where you want your eyes pointing when you're using the headrest in your chair. I'll explain more of that as we get to what makes a better headrest. Then we get to the tier D or grade D headrest. And this is what's found on the vast majority of headrests out there. And it's really hard to explain what makes a grade D headrest because there are so many things that I think fall under this bracket. Grade D headrests often can go up and down and can swivel, but it's got a multitude of other issues. One of them could be that the padding is just too dense, too firm, and that means that it won't be able to adjust to the position of your neck crook. So unless it's perfectly shaped to your neck, it's just not gonna fit in that nook area really well. Another issue that it could present is that you could have one that's just too soft. Usually, that doesn't happen with the fabric ones, but usually with mesh headrests. Sometimes mesh headrests can be very loose and it can feel like, oh, that's kind of nice because it's really bending to the shape of your neck, to the shape of your head. But the reason why that becomes really awful is because mesh usually has hard edges and the fabric, cushioning pads that, so you can't really feel it. But with mesh, there's no padding. And so oftentimes the really soft mesh headrests, you can feel the hard edges really quickly. Mesh also, especially cheap mesh, also has an issue where if you start rolling your head or you slide it, it can pull the back of your hairs pretty easily. Then you have another class of Class D headrests where the issue becomes that the shape is okay, it can swivel, but it just doesn't have enough range. And so you're able to swivel it a little bit, but you want to get it more, but it just doesn't move all that much. Then you have another class of Class D headrests where you can swivel it, you can do it, but moving and adjusting it is really difficult. Either it's too loose or it's way too tight. Sometimes when it's too tight, it can be really difficult to adjust while you're sitting in your chair. And you might think that, oh, headrests are supposed to be just a set it and forget it kind of thing. That is not true. The position that you want a headrest when you're sitting up will change drastically from the position you want it when you're leaning back. Oftentimes, you're gonna wanna lower your headrest when you lean back, and then you're also gonna wanna swivel it as well. And so if you have a headrest that's really difficult to ratchet up and down, well, a couple things can happen. If it's really tight, a lot of these headrests have plastic exposed on the bottom, and when you try to yank it down, it ends up banging on the top of your spinal cord. It really, really hurts. Also, it just makes it much more annoying to adjust that headrest, so you just kind of end up settling and going, screw it, I'm not really gonna mess with it because it's just too hard to get into that perfect position, and it just kind of defeats the purpose of paying extra money for a headrest. Then we come to what I'm gonna call the grade C headrest. The headrest on the SIHOO M18 swivels in a really unique way, where instead of swiveling at the middle point and it would just turn off the middle, it sits at the bottom. And so the fulcrum, so when you actually turn it forward, the headrest actually kind of moves forward a little bit, which is a nice little touch. I'll show you in just a minute. And then when you go back, you don't get a ton of tilt back, but you get enough to kind of lift up like this. And when it comes to the up and down action, you can actually move it pretty easily. It's not super loose that it's gonna fall on you while using it, but it's also not difficult enough that when you try to pull it down, it's gonna crank down onto your neck. It's also got a little bit of padding down here so it doesn't hurt you in the event that it does. So far for me, having used it for a while, it doesn't do that at all. Now, the reason why that tilting forward is so important here is because just preference. So if I'm sitting here, I personally don't like a headrest when I'm sitting up and working. I think sometimes it can atrophy neck muscles, and so I much prefer to sit without having a headrest. And I think in its current position like this, it's able to kind of stay out of the way. It might tickle the back of my hair once in a while, but for the most part, it stays out of the way. But if you're somebody who wants headrest support while sitting up, you can actually tilt this down a little bit and turn it forward. And so you can see that now the top of the headrest is making contact with the head, and then it's curved in such a way that it's fitting a little bit into that top crook of your neck here. And so you're able to have it like that because of that tilt down, tilt forward feature like this. Now, also, when you unlock the chair, being able to tilt it down like that is really important here. And the curvature, I think, is nice, and the padding, it's not the softest, but it's soft enough that it's not gonna hurt you. The reason why it's so important is because, let's say I'm tilted. If you have your monitor set in kind of the standard, eye level position, well, when you're tilted down, you want your head to your eyes, your neck, your head position to be here. But in order to do that, you're gonna need a headrest that's able to turn forward a little bit so that when you tilt, you can have your eyes there without feeling any strain on your neck. And again, that tilt down and forward is gonna help with that position. But if let's say you have your monitor stacked vertically and you need to look up a little bit more, well, having the headrest be able to tilt back like this, you can see that my head and my neck are able to naturally go into that position, so I'm looking more upwards like this. Now, the reason why it's a C tier and not higher up is because the padding on this is just okay. I think also because it sits a little bit further back in the chair, even if you were to sit like this and have it like turned forward, this crook here, I feel like it could really be more snug inside of the neck, give you a lot more support here. You just can't do it because it doesn't come forward enough. That's the problem with these headrests that don't have any kind of individual forward and back action. You just don't get that like real snug fit on your neck. It kind of fits like 3/4 of your neck and not the rest of it. It's got some hard edges on the side. It's got just enough padding that you don't really feel it while moving your head around. And then in terms of like just general action and motion, it could be a little bit smoother. It could be a little bit easier to adjust, but it's not bad, especially considering its price point. If you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. I would love to hit 100,000 subscribers. And if you want to pick up anything, links will be in the description. It costs you nothing, but really helps this channel a lot and keeps reviews and videos like this going. I really appreciate your help. The headrest on the Clatina Mellet, I think, is a grade B headrest. The headrest on the Clatina Mellet swivels in a really unique way, where instead of swiveling at a specific point, a fulcrum in the headrest, you can actually change that because the headrest itself moves up and down instead of the back arm like it does on the majority of headrests. So because of that, if you want it, kind of on the SIHOO M18, if you want it to come down and forward, well then you have to raise the headrest all the way up and then move that, kind of tilt it forward like that. But you can also have it tilt and swivel in the middle like this, and have it like that, or you can push it all the way down and have it so that when it tilts and swivels, it's able to tuck more under your neck, lifting that head up. Now, when it comes to the padding here, it's much thicker than it is on the SIHOO M18, which is another reason why it's giving a bonus point as well. It's also a little bit easier to adjust while sitting inside of your chair because it's a little bit, I mean, it's hard to do here, but when you're sitting inside with two hands, it's much, much nicer. Now, when you sit inside of the chair and you're sitting like this, again, I prefer to have my headrest off of my head, and so I think it offers a good amount of distance back. The downside of this headrest is that even if you were to tilt it up and down forward like this, I feel like it doesn't really come forward enough if you want to have support in this kind of position. You kind of have to go back into the headrest, and then even then, I feel like it's just not in a super comfortable position when you're sitting upright. I think where this headrest really shines though is when you're tilted back. So if you tilt back in this chair, it's got a ton of padding, and so you can really get it into exactly the nook that you want. It's not the softest padding, but because it's got a bunch, you know, you're not gonna really hit any kind of hard edges, hard places. Let me not try to go down as low as that. So right here, if I turn it like this, I'm able to turn it forward so that I can see kind of what's in front of me, but then I can also tuck it down and loop it like this so I can look up what's up there, and it works really nicely. Again, where it falls short is that you don't really get a lot of that front and back adjustment to sit really comfortably on the neck, but you get a ton of cushion so that it's really able to fit kind of pretty much in any way that you position it. And for a chair, for a headrest that costs about like 20, 30 bucks, because without the headrest, it's like 200. With the headrest, it's like 225, 230. This headrest is a pretty nice addition for just like $30. On the Steelcase Gesture is what I'm gonna classify as a grade A headrest. One important note is that the headrest for the Steelcase Gesture cannot be added or removed, so if you want one, you need to buy one with the headrest. The headrest on the Steelcase Gesture is a great headrest. So kind of like the Clatina Mellet, instead of the whole arm of the chair moving up and down, it's just the headrest that moves up and down like this, and it's really easy to do. It uses a teeth action, really smooth. It's easy for me to do here, even easier when I'm sitting in the chair to get like really, really accurate, you know, small micro movements, easy to do. It not only swivels like crazy, like you can see this, that it goes from there all the way to here, but then this is kind of what makes it really amazing is that you're able to tilt the whole thing forward and back. And you can see what I was talking about, that missing forward and back action that we're on the tier C and tier B, tier C. Here on tier A, we start to get into that, yes, you do have some of that X and some of that X forward and back axis movement here. Now, when you go ahead and sit on this chair, the padding on this thing is also really great. It's got a ton of padding as well. Now, I think you gotta be a little bit taller. I'm 5'6". I did recommend that the Gesture is better for taller folks. I'm gonna say probably like 5'7" and above, 5'8". You can see here that even for me though, I can tilt it down, I can tilt it forward, and I can tilt it up like this, and I can still get it. So it's about really figuring out how to use the headrest. If you're shorter like me, it's probably gonna be best if you bend the headrest forward and then tilt it up so that the circular part of the headrest here kind of goes into that neck area. Now, I talked about, again, what makes the difference between cheap headrests and expensive headrests is the amount of customization you can do on the headrest. Again, I'm saying this for the millionth time, when I'm sitting and doing work, I do not want a headrest touching me at all. And so what I'm able to do is I'm able to lift it up, I can swivel it backwards, and now I'm not making any contact with the headrest. You can see that I can turn it, and unless I'm really banging it back like this, I can't feel it. But while I'm doing regular work like this, I don't feel it whatsoever. I like using a headrest when I start tilting back like this. And this is where I can bring it in, I can pull it down forward like this. There we go. It takes a little bit, but I'm able to kind of get it exactly into that position. And again, if I want to look more forward, I'll tilt it down a little bit, get it really right into that nook of the neck here, a little more forward, like that. And then if I want to tilt it up so I can look up a little bit more, well, I can lift it up and a little bit more forward, and I'm able to look up like this. Really well padded everywhere, really nice shape, especially down here. This is kind of the ideal curve section that you want to get into that nook of your neck. The reason why it's an A tier is that you probably saw how difficult it was for me to get it in that exact position that I wanted it in. It's not the most intuitive, it's not the easiest to do, because when you want it to move forward, it doesn't just move forward on an individual axis. You have to move it down and forward. And it can be really hard to like find the position when you have to move it like this, as opposed to straight in and out, which is what we're gonna see on our S tier headrests. An important note is that adding a third-party accessory to these chairs could void the warranty. But I always say, how are they gonna know? Are you gonna tell them? Are you gonna leave a headrest on if you ever need to get it serviced? From all of my testing and installing, as long as you're not being reckless or negligent, it shouldn't leave any kind of lasting mark. And in my humble opinion, I think this whole warranty thing is really silly because again, how are they gonna know? And if it does leave a ding, I mean, that ding could have come from a million places. How are they gonna prove that it came from a headrest? That's just my humble opinion. The headrests on the Haworth Fern and the Herman Miller Aeron, these are identical headrests, and these are what I'm gonna call grade S headrests. The headrests on the Haworth Fern and the Herman Miller Aeron are the exact same headrest, and it was not made by Haworth or Herman Miller. It was made by a company called Atlas Headrest. Now, this headrest was designed specifically with the Aeron in mind. And so because of that, the plastics are a one-to-one match both in color and type with the Herman Miller Aeron. And the fabric here, this fabric cushion, obviously there's no fabric on the Aeron, so they try to get as close as match as possible. You also have different shades as well, such as this color here for the gray/white Aeron. But also, they also make a mesh version of this. And in the mesh version, it's again a one-to-one match with the Herman Miller Aerons, both in color, material, weave type. It looks like it was made for the chair. It looks phenomenal. I personally prefer the fabric version better because this mesh, I think it's a little bit plasticky. I don't love the feeling on my neck, so I much prefer the fabric here. Now, this one here, again, it's made for the Herman Miller Aeron, but somebody out there, username Adam Universe, he really wanted a headrest for his Haworth Fern, found a way to adapt it onto his chair, and him and Atlas Headrest worked together and they came up with this. And so you're able to buy an adapted headrest for the Aeron for the Haworth Fern. They're the exact same headrest, but the major difference is going to be in terms of lowest height. You can see that the Herman Miller Aeron's headrest goes a bit lower than the Haworth Fern, so I recommended that for the Haworth Fern, unless you're 5'6" or above, you should not get this headrest because lower than that, you're not gonna sit on this curvature correctly. So let me explain why this is an S-tier headrest. So as you can see, let me go ahead and push the Fern out of the way for a second. As you can see, remember I talked about how ease of adjustment was an issue on the Steelcase gesture? That's not a problem here because you have individual axis controls, both for the horizontal adjustments, so you can move that back and forward, and then on the up and down mechanism as well. And then you also get swivel on the headrest. And this swivel is nice and tight. Sometimes on cheap headrests, like what I'm gonna call the D tier or grade D headrest, when you sit on the headrest, sometimes because it's so loose, it'll just kind of naturally sag like this, and you can't really get into the position that you want. This is nice and tight, nice and firm. It's not moving anywhere once you put it in there and you rest your head on it. Also, in terms of other adjustments and how you tighten it, really easy to do. There's a knob here that tightens your ability to go forward and back. And then there's a knob down here that you can tighten that makes it difficult or more easy to adjust it up and down. You can really crank it down if you want it tight, or you can loosen it if you like having some motion and moving it around while you're sitting inside the chair. I'm gonna loosen it just a tiny bit for the purposes of demonstrating why I like this headrest so much. So when I sit in the chair, again, ease of adjustment is so much better compared to the Steelcase gesture. So when I'm sitting, for me personally, I don't like it when I'm sitting and doing work. So I'm just gonna go ahead and push it out of the way. And I do work like this. And as you can see, apart from the very edges, I'm not making any contact with the back of the headrest or with the back of my head, which is really nice. Then when I need it, I'm able to simply pull it forward, tilt it a little bit, maybe down a little, and there you go. Now I have it exactly where I need it for when I'm doing work like this. If you want it more forward, easy, push it more forward. If you want it back more, you can easily lean it back. Then when you tilt back and you need to adjust it, again, super easy to do. If I want to look up, I can push it down and then tilt it upwards a little bit so that my head is looking upwards. Fits really nicely in the crook. And then if I want to look more forward, well then I'm able to kind of tilt it forward a little bit so that again, the top of the headrest is hitting this crook right here and it's able to keep my eyes really forward. When it comes to the cushioning and the feel of this, the fabric is super duper soft and the cushioning is super plush, super dense compared to the Steelcase gesture. Again, why I think this brings it into an S tier as opposed to an A tier. Also, I think that when it comes to the mesh version of this headrest, I did a full in-depth review between the fabric and the mesh version. Well, the mesh version is the only mesh headrest that I've tested where I can sit in the chair and kind of go like this if you're gonna do so for whatever reason, and it's not gonna snag any kind of hair, not gonna pull any hair from the back of your head, which is a huge, huge plus. And finally, the headrest here for the Herman Miller Embody is what I'm gonna call a grade S plus headrest. Again, this headrest was not developed by Herman Miller, it was developed by Atlas Headrest, the same one who did the Herman Miller Aeron headrest. This headrest is phenomenal. I think it's the best headrest out there, period. The reasons it's so good is because, again, you get the up and down adjustment. Now, as you notice, when you go up and down, it does go forward a little bit. So it's not a perfect up and down like it is on the Herman Miller Aeron. But you're able to really easily adjust this headrest all the way back or forward so that as you move it up, if it goes forward, you can also push it back a little bit, and it's really easy to do while sitting inside of the chair. Now, not only that, but also this headrest, the nature of the Embody was meant so that the entire frame flexes with you. And as you can see, the headrest does kind of bend a little bit. It's not crazy, but when you're sitting inside the chair, not only if you put weight against it, it's firm, but also as you bend your chair, the headrest will kind of tort and move and contort with you. Not only that, but also it's a one-to-one match. So this plasticky thing here that's found on the back of your Embody, it's gonna be a one-to-one match both in color and material and flex as well. And same with the color of this plastic here. It's really a wonderfully designed headrest, but I think where it takes the cake over the Herman Miller Aeron's headrest is gonna be in this cushioning. This cushioning is phenomenal. It's really supportive, yet super squishy, and really just like hugs your neck and really adjusts to the shape of your neck really, really well. So when it comes to sitting and adjusting inside of the chair, you know, I said this a million times now. I'm sorry, I forgot how to use this chair. I've been testing so many others. You know, if you want it out of the way, really easy to do. Just push it back and it's really far out of the way. Then if you want it, you can go ahead and pull it forward and you can swivel it, move it down like this, exactly the way you want it, and boom, you're good to go, right? Just move it like that and you're good. It's incredible. Then when you want to go ahead and tilt back, you can go ahead and tilt back like this. And again, you can bring it forward into you. You can tilt it forward if you need to look forward a little bit. But then let's say you need to look up a little bit, you can pull it back a little, bend it up a little, and you're able to do that. And it feels like you're sitting on a really soft pillow. Like this squishiness is just absolutely incredible. It feels really, really good no matter where it's placed on your neck. Now, when it comes to the positioning of it as well, this is also what makes it incredible, is that the nature of the Embody, like this back here, people complain that it's too curved in. Well, this thing is so squishy, so supportive that if you push it in and back, it can also offer people a lot more of that upper back and neck support. Like putting it like this, yeah, you feel like it's not exactly part of the chair, but it's so squishy that it doesn't really matter. It can offer you additional back support, squishiness, that otherwise you might have the edges of this chair dig into you. By having this here, it prevents that and it feels really good. It can offer like additional upper shoulder support. It's pretty incredible. Now, where it gets some dings here is that adjusting this thing, not adjusting it, but tightening it can be a little bit of a tricky matter. So the Herman Miller Aeron was really easy to do. You had a dial here and then you had a dial here and that was it. With this chair, you've got a dial here and this one is gonna control the back and forward tension. And you really want to dial that, crank that down, and it's going to really be able to lock that down there for you. Now, if you want to go more, let's say you don't want it to ever move, well then you need to get what do you call it, an Allen key. It comes with the chair, but you have to go inside this hole and you have to really crank it down if you really want it. And now, as you can see, how do I get this out? Now, as you can see, I can barely move this thing when moving it forward and back. So you have to pull out an extra tool in order to really get it to a place where you can't move it whatsoever. The same goes for the up and down adjustment. And taller people especially who exert more weight, especially have, exert more weight on this, can push this down really easily. And it's not always easy to figure out, but there is actually another Allen key hole here where you have to put this in and then you have to tighten it manually in order to really dial the up and down thing like this. Now, for someone smaller like me, it's not that much of an issue because I pretty much use my headrest down totally in like this position and you barely have to move it up and down. But I imagine if you're taller and you like it up here, that is gonna become a little bit more annoying. But otherwise, the feel of it, the finish of it, just everything about it is absolutely phenomenal. And this is an S+ headrest. Links to everything will be in the description below. Make sure you like, subscribe. Let me know if you like these headrests, you don't like these headrests. Let me know what headrest you like best. Until next time, stay safe, and as always, stay honest.